Junk food has been a staple of our unhealthy diet at least once in our human life. But what if I told you that maybe loving junk food came from our ancestors? As it turns out, our ancestors centuries before today enjoyed the same indulgences as we do. In this video, we're going to take a stroll through history to see what junk food was like at the time of the king. And we're not talking about the Burger King. But of course, not all of them are delicious. So stick around and see if your favorite junk food gets mentioned. The Carbo Kingdom. Food can be a really great indicator of how life was like during a certain period of time, and this is no exception. Way back then, during ancient medieval times, there exists a certain period of time where the rich and poor alike filled their bellies with delicious salty and savory carbs. Here are a few notable examples. Meat pies. Before the Whoppers and before Popeye's chicken sandwiches, there existed another meaty bread combo that stole the hearts of the masses. Meat pies. These savory pies consisted of some regular pie dough filled with a stew of pork, beef, and a mix of stewed vegetables. These are then baked in a hearth and then served at market streets where the poor and the on-the-go can grab a serving easily. Almost reminiscent of a Chicago deep dish pizza with way less sauce, this was the pinnacle of junk food for years to come. And it was definitely indulgent, filled with a mishmash of meat that has been seasoned to perfection. Couple that with flaky crust, and you've got a meal that's transcended eras and has only gotten better with time. Sadly, it seems ye old chefs took this too seriously. Some stores would fill their meat pies with old, rotting, or sickly meat, thinking that their customers wouldn't be able to tell the difference if they were hungry enough. Sadly, some customers did take notice on their deathbeds. But if you do find yourself lucky enough to find a sanitary medieval pie shop near you, then you'll be getting the holy grail of your time. Soft pretzels. That's right, your favorite mall meal might actually be your ancestors' favorite junk snack too. These pretzels were made by street bakers, much like how they are created these days with the same base ingredients. They even served it with their own mustard dip. The only difference is the access to extra ingredients that add a depth of flavor. Now, you might be wondering, if these soft pretzels weren't anything to write home about, why would they count as junk food? Well, the answer lies in the most unlikely of places. You see, pretzels were actually favored by the church as a cheap, filling, and most importantly meatless meal during the Lenten season, when they would practice abstinence. Pretzels were then given out to children and other practitioners of faith during the time, so it's safe to assume that although the taste was acceptable, these pretzels were famous because of what they symbolized. Bread bowl. As it turns out, our medieval ancestors were way ahead of us in terms of ecological sustainability. No, it wasn't because of their refusal to take proper baths. Feast your eyes on the bread bowl, or better known at the time as trenchers. These baker's goods are essentially takeout containers for food that you wanted to either eat on the go or at the comfort of your home. Simply go to the nearest and cleanest market, choose your preferred bread bowl stuffing, and right away into the hills. Some bakers even had discounts if you brought your own meat to be used for the dish. Simply wrapping your slab of meat and putting it in the hearth to broil to perfection. The best part about this dish is that once you're done eating whatever dish is put inside the bread bowl, you could simply eat whatever juices have sogged up the inside of the bread. The sugar rush. As we pass the confines of the carbohydrate age, we reach an era of cuisine that can be lovingly called the sugar rush. It was in this era where sugar slowly became the addictive substance that we know today. Why was it addictive? Well, because it was so dang delicious, that's why. It was actually so delicious that people even began covering their meat and vegetables in sugar, which sounds absolutely dreadful. Here are some of the most notable desserts that our ancestors loved to feast on. Almost none of them healthy. Funnel cake. That's right. This fairground staple actually has its roots way before powdered sugar was readily available. But the funnel cake didn't always look like how it does today, instead being just fried medallions of dough called crisps. Additionally, sugar was very hard to come by during medieval times, so often peasants would use honey to sweeten their dishes instead of powdered sugar. Thankfully, as times went on, sugar became more readily available to the masses, and thus this sweet treat was born. Now, we all have tried fried dough at least once in our lives before, but if you haven't tried funnel cake, then boy, are you in for a treat. Funnel cake consists of dough piped into scalding hot oil to form the shape of a disc, fried until golden brown. Once it's done cooking, it's immediately pulled from the oil, strained of excess oil, and then topped with a generous amount of powdered sugar. Now, you must be thinking, that sounds very unhealthy, oh my god! Well, you'd be right. But ignorance is bliss for many medieval citizens because taste still reigns supreme. Gingerbread. Nowadays, we see gingerbread as a holiday staple, baked only in winters when the gingerbread is exceptionally useful to combat the cold of winter. But medieval Europe used to make this sweet treat whenever they wanted to. Though there was one dilemma, one reason why gingerbread was made so late into the centuries. Ginger is a root native to Southeast Asia. These spices were only given the attention they deserved once the Crusades were over and soldiers brought back many exotic spices, including ginger. Once ginger made it to the shores of England, it was instantly loved, not just for its taste, but also because of its ability to hide the taste of spoiled products. And then the great culinary knights of old cooked up the first ever batch of gingerbread. Queen Elizabeth I was notably a huge fan of gingerbread, often requesting special designs for guests. As for the taste, the gingerbread recipe was tweaked multiple times throughout history, but the flavor profile remains the same. A crunchy and chewy cookie that was sweet and slightly spicy, enough to warm your stomach and your heart on the way down. Alcohol. And of course, who could forget medieval ale and wine? Alcohol is a staple of the medieval diet, often seen as a source of nutrition rather than a vice for many people to partake in. In fact, some of our ancestors lived primarily through alcohol consumption, considering how common taverns and guilds were. Not only that, but most medieval houses had their own casks of ale brewing. And when the time came, houses would transform into small taverns to celebrate the practice of drinking alcohol. Truly, one of the more consistent tasting recipes from this list. These recipes are still the blueprint for the many beers and wines we enjoy today. So now that we've outlined every piece of unhealthy junk that our ancestors stuffed in their face the same way we would a McDonald's Big Mac, it's time to decide. There is no denying it. Medieval food really is some delicious food. Back during a time when health wasn't much of a concern, the food was unapologetically indulgent. But sadly, because of this lack of concern for health, you would be thinking twice about the junk that you put into your mouth. From easily spoiled ingredients to rampant diseases, these may just be enough to have us say no to a delicious serving of meat pie. Thankfully though, all these recipes have since then been improved in terms of flavor and cleanliness. There are laws in place that now prohibit the serving of spoiled food, and even laws that dictate the proper processes a cook needs to undergo before selling meals. But hey, maybe you're the adventurous type, and you want to try your luck with the original dirty pies because really, let's be honest, who could say no to juicy meat between bread? Personally, my favorite has to be the bread bowls, delicious and ingenious for its time. How about you? Do you have a favorite from the list? Tell us all about it in the comments section below.